here today on Real Estate Renovators with a special guest, Vanessa Jeans.
Yeah. Thank you,
I'm
Shane.
going to leave it with you guys.
Can we get a little dance before you leave, Shane? Thank you. Can't top that intro.
No, we can't.
Well, for those of you who don't know, Real Estate Renovators is the business advisory show for real estate professionals. And thank you to our guest star, Shane Spiteri.
Our intro star.
Our intro star. That's right, Rexy. Now, I would love to introduce Vanessa, but I know that you're very eager to introduce her, so I'll let you take it away, Rexy.
First I heard of this. I am actually excited to have Vanessa on the show today. Real estate, I believe, is such a franchise-dominated industry. There's more franchises in real estate than probably any other industry I can think of. So much so, for like the branding and the name being so important. But when it comes to real estate agencies, it's really difficult for them to ascertain which franchise to choose. Like you can go off the market, you can speak to franchisees and franchisors, and sometimes what they publish is not what you get. And by the time you realise that, it may be too late because you've signed a 5, 6. Maybe longer term, or you've gone and rebranded your premises and
entire
logos,
business, yeah.
entire business. So, and there's no one that does what you do, I suppose, and what you do is so unique and special, which is really why we wanted you on the show.
Just taking away the
you,
introduction
Rex.
of her
I know.
entire business, that's what she's
I haven't said
saying.
what it is. I haven't said what it is whatsoever. I've just said what the problem is and what the solution you found for everyone is what she's going to be talking
Right.
about.
What an intro.
Will you tell us a little bit, before we go into the exciting business that you have recently launched,
Not do that.
can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Way less exciting than the intro that I got from Rex, but I'll give you a little bit of background information. So have been in the real estate industry for, I'd say, about 14 years now.
Wow.
Started off in an office myself, so got the on-ground work like everybody else has, and really got to understand what was needed within a business before joining one of the largest franchise groups
The
out
largest.
there at the moment, the largest, and worked with that group for about 9 years at a corporate level, did a number of different roles within that team, and then moved into the next largest franchise group within
Second
Australia, and spent some time there as well. So I think I was able to understand overall, I guess, what makes a good business and what great leaders are doing in the industry from two of the largest groups out there before I could go out and, I guess, spread my wings and start up this new venture.
We know what an FDM is, sorry Rexy, but what is for those watching at home that are like, what's an FDM? Like, what
Sure.
was she doing in these large franchise groups? Can you explain to us what your role was when you were with these real estate groups?
Yeah, of course. So in franchise development, basically I'm going out there meeting existing business owners or salespeople, or anyone really that's showing interest in potentially opening up their own business. When I was working with those brands, you're selling their product, I guess. So you're exploring what that franchise group might be able to offer in terms of support for a business owner. So whether it's a business rebranding into that franchise group or somebody starting up a new business with that franchise group support. So basically I'm selling that existing product and the services that they offer along the way and signing up that client with that franchise group. So over the last 4 years, that's what I did for 2 different brands.
We did more than that. Like we know a lot of similar people. And
Yeah.
A lot of my clients know you very well because you've worked with them. But even the ones you don't work with, you go inside their business. You go to openings. You see how they operate. You go into their sales meetings. You're not just selling a brand. Existing brand people within the brand. You see the insides of so many different franchise businesses, of real estate businesses, and you see what works and what doesn't. And some of the advice I've heard you give people to do the small changes to their business has been so valuable for their businesses. I think you're selling yourself a little bit short by saying you just sell a brand.
Thank you. I think that's what I loved doing. I don't necessarily know if that's part of the role in itself. The role in itself is that you've got a product to sell and you're going and meeting people and matching them up with that product. I loved working with business owners and I loved being able to delve into their businesses and figure out where there might be gaps that they could improve. That is also how I was able to understand the value of what they were using within the franchise group and what they weren't using. A lot of the time you'll find that even when someone has joined a franchise group, they're not utilising all the tools and services available to them.
That some of them don't even know
Like what though? Like,
Correct.
can you talk us through what
Correct.
some of those tools and services are, V?
Yeah,
Vanessa?
of course.
Sorry, I
Well,
shouldn't call you
obviously-
V on set.
No,
Vanessa.
go for it. I think, obviously, when you're pitched a product, you're going to look at the big shiny things. So you get marketing, you get administration support, you get technology, you get training. There's a lot of things that you see on paper, but depending on which brand you decide to join or partner with, and it might not even be a big franchise group. There are a lot of smaller boutique brands out there, and there's also an avenue for independents and people going out completely on their own, and all have merit in this industry. I think there's space for everybody, and the different services that you can utilize are tapping into the technology platforms that a franchise group or a brand might have done all this research or built, and so tapping into the way that you can use that and best utilize it. There's so much depth into that, and it requires a lot of training and support and a lot of the time
education, because a lot of them
100%.
don't know. Like certain franchise groups, they can look at weekly. You can get sales data about what percentage you should be paying for admin staff, rent, etc.
Correct.
But a lot of people within that franchise don't even know it's
Correct.
there.
And they provide training services. It might be weekly, online, monthly, however often it is, conferences. The list is endless of the support that you can get, but more often than not, if people don't align themselves with what's being offered or they don't believe in it, they just don't utilize it.
But I think something more that I really want to talk more today, if I can, is about what you help your clients with. You can, if I've got a client that I refer to, you can help them choose you're like a mortgage broker for real estate offices.
Yes, we haven't even touched on.
Yeah.
No,
on
and
the
I think
I think
that's
we
what
need to go there, Rexy.
I think we should start there and go
We
backwards.
need to start as a broader picture, because we've got now an understanding of Vanessa going into two of the largest real estate franchise groups in the country and understanding the intricacies of individual businesses and what franchise groups can offer, which has then led you into, and I'll let you announce, I know it's already social media, social media has
Public knowledge now.
Public knowledge. But can you tell us a little bit about Halo Selection?
Yeah.
Why you've done it and
Yeah.
what services they offer before we go into the intricacies of the services that she
I wanna
has.
talk about
We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there, but we need our audience
I
to
feel like I'm being
know
outvoted every
what
time.
it is.
Yeah, so
Sorry, Vanessa.
that's okay. No, of course. I think along the journey of doing what I was doing in the franchise development role, I'd often come across clients that I'd meet, and we spoke about this earlier, where you'd meet someone and you know instantly that that's your person and you hit it off and you want to be able to help them and you want to be able to get into their business. But when you're aligned with a specific brand, for one reason or another, and it might be a personality clash with the leadership team, it might be that there's already a territory taken up within that space, so you can't actually plug in another business.
Yeah.
There are so many different options available, but often I wasn't able to help that client or work with that client aligned with just one brand.
Yeah.
And there also wasn't a solution. If I'm wanting to work with someone or really like them and want to help their business, there was nowhere that I could refer them to be able to find a better alternative. And after a couple of years of doing that, I got really tired of not being able to help people that I wanted to help. So that came to the creation of Halo Selection. I thought there needs to be a plugin, and I can be that plugin. So I've started this new venture that I can, I guess, align the right people with the right services. And like I said, it might be a franchise group, it might be a small boutique brand, and it might be going independent, depending on what that client values, what they find important, and what they need to better their business. So finding that right solution.
Huge gap in the market.
Yeah.
And firstly, V, huge congratulations for the launch of the business, but also huge congratulations on finding a gap in the market and then filling it.
Thank
I
you.
think that what you've just said, I have previously worked as an internal recruiter with a brand. And whilst the brand that I was working for was exceptional, you meet people and it doesn't matter how good the brand is, it's not a one-size-fits-all scenario.
Correct.
So the fact that someone can go to you, or you can approach someone and then cater who they are as to what best franchise will match who they are, their values, their morals, what they're looking for, is exceptional, and it's not available in the real estate world. And I love when there's someone in there that's going, let's change the cog and let's create something new and huge congratulations to you, firstly
Thank
and
you.
foremostly. I know Rex has a dying question.
He has been hit me.
Breathing heavily in my ear while I've been talking, dying to ask it. So hit it,
You're
Rex.
doing great.
Ask away.
No. Was that a question you asked? Or was it
It was a bit of a statement. It was mostly just a
Just giving me
congratulations.
accolades. I appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell us about how do you go about it. So if I'm a real estate agent, I approach you. How do you choose the right franchise for me?
Yeah.
What's the qualities you look at for me and the franchise, I suppose?
I don't want to use the term dating, but I feel like you need to get to know the person. For me, it's really important to understand my client inside out and know what it is, because what someone, and you'll find this in recruitment, what someone might tell you isn't necessarily what they need or what they want. They're just saying words that they think they should say. So the more time I can spend with a client, the more time I get to know them, the more I can understand what I think they might need and align them with that. In saying that, I won't just provide a suggestion and say, this is what I think, you should take this solution. I will shop them around like a mortgage broker would with banks, and you provide a variety of different options, and then at the end of the day it's up to the client to choose which model best fits what they want to achieve. And we often work backwards, so I'll sit with a client and say, what do you want to achieve in the next 5 years? What do you want? And often they say, I don't know. And I say, okay, well, first we need to figure that out. Before we can get you to the goal, we need to figure out what that goal is and then work backwards to figure out how we can achieve that and go from there, I guess.
Yeah.
So refreshing to hear, because it should be like dating, because when it gets to a franchise, you kind of sign and you start.
Correct.
And it's like you get married and you
selling
start,
you
and
the
there's
world,
no
yeah.
dating period.
And it's a really big deal. I think
It's a
I
massive
think a
deal.
lot of people underestimate what a big life decision that is. You're signing a franchise agreement. It might be, some of the smaller options, I know you can sign up for 12 months, but majority of them,
But even if it's
a
12 months,
five-
you've got to change your brand, your logo,
It's
your
huge.
database,
Yeah,
your
correct.
website. Everything's getting changed to someone else's intellectual property and
and
branding.
you're pushing that out in your community, in your marketplace as your representative. So you want to make sure that you align with the
100%.
values that brand is pursuing. So
And certain brands have a very tough exit strategy.
correct, and they
You
can be up
can't
to
leave.
10 years. There's franchise
I
groups
think a
out
lot
there
of people
signing
don't
on
know
10
as well, like
years.
how important brand is as well. Like, can you talk us through the importance of a brand when selecting the right franchise?
Yeah, well, I think again that comes back to what I said earlier. It depends on what you want.
Yeah.
So you can utilize the marketing of a brand, you can utilize the name, you can utilize the logo, but there's so much more in depth, and until you understand what you want, it's really difficult to make that right decision.
Yeah.
But it is so much more. Yes, you get the logo that you can put your suburb or your name against and use that picture or that logo on your marketing and your REA banners and all sorts of things like that. But to understand what the brand really stands for and what their values are and what they are trying to achieve, that comes from the leadership.
Correct.
And understanding we were talking about this earlier, that often it comes down to whoever's driving that ship in the direction in which the brand is going at the time. And, over my decade in franchising, I worked for 5 different CEOs, and often you could see the shift in the brand, and the brand hadn't changed. And, the logo did change slightly for one of them, but even though everybody outside the brand sees still that one logo, the direction of the growth and the way that the company is moving often comes down to that leadership. So if you align with the leadership, or if you don't align with the leadership, that can make a huge difference in your business and your tenure within that
Well,
group.
and I think when you spoke about change, I think what a lot of offices or real estate agencies don't realise is it's not set for life. You can change. People change franchises, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah, definitely.
There's different options out there, and people don't necessarily explore that.
They stay in their safety zone, right? They're doing well.
100%.
They're listing, they're
Well,
selling.
they
they've
don't
got a
realise
team.
there's
Like, why
different
would
options
I?
available for them sometimes. I
Well,
feel.
that's right.
And often they haven't thought about what it means. So a lot of the time people ask me what are the franchise fees, and that's what they focus on. But they forget what more they could get through that transition and that change. And yes, you might be paying slightly higher franchise fees, or less in some cases, depending on the move that you make. But how can you grow your business, and how can you shift, whether it's growing into multi-offices or whether it's expanding and recruiting internally within that one space? There's so many different support avenues out there with different organisations that your business in itself changes, and it makes those franchise fees so irrelevant at the end of the day if your business is evolving in the way that you want it to evolve.
Potentially training fee. Like I'm hearing from a lot of different real estate directors that are frustrated with their franchises because they don't offer any training or support. So particularly when it's coming down to people and retaining their talent, if you're a director that's out listing and selling, it's super difficult to also be on the tools, training and developing your team members. So I'm seeing that there's a lot of frustration. So, I mean, for a lot of directors watching this that are potentially considering, refranchising, you're right. It's not just coming down to fees. It's what can they offer you? Can they, is there training seminars that team members can go to? Because if you're paying them additional in franchise fees, but you're getting weekly training from corporate, sales training, auctioneer training, then it's worth its weight in gold, right?
It's more than that, Chanell. It's not just are they providing training, what kind of training are
Correct.
they providing? Who are the trainers?
Yeah.
Is their training really innovative?
True.
And is it moving forward with the times? And do your people resonate with that? Do you as a leader resonate with that? If you're going to attend, it's no good knowing that the business puts on or the organisation puts on monthly training or does weekly training. If you go and attend the first one and go, I took nothing from that, or I didn't listen to the trainer, or I switched off and I was on my phone, or it was more important for me to be on emails, and then the next month you don't go, it's important to see what the trainer is like and see what the training is like, and are you learning from it?
Yeah.
And the community, when you enter a franchise, you enter a community where you've got other
Correct.
franchisees
That's
where
right.
you can become good friends
Bounce
with
ideas
and bounce
from.
ideas off and grow together.
100%.
And it should match your own succession plan. A lot of smaller franchises, some people get too big for them, or some of the bigger franchises, some people want to downsize and getting too small for them, and they need to change at some stage.
And it's really challenging to do that in this industry anonymously, because moving brands or opening your own business is not an easy thing to do in this industry, because often, especially if you're a salesperson and you want to open your own business, you can't just openly go and shop around and walk into a different franchise group and say, what have you got? I want to explore it and see if this is an opportunity for me, because likely you're trying to protect, it's a decision you haven't made yet, and you want to understand it and you want to see what it's like without risking and losing what you've already built.
But it's also confidentiality as well, being
Correct.
like the real estate industry is such a tight-knit community, and let's be real, they all love to gossip.
Yeah.
As soon as something happens, they're on a hotline and
Correct.
everyone loves to gossip. So you and I have a lot of synergies, obviously, with recruitment and with what you're doing, because you're essentially matchmaking people to a particular brand or office. And what I notice with recruitment is a lot of people are really unhappy where they are, but they're frightened to sort of take that first step because then their confidentiality could be breached.
Correct, and
As
it's
soon as they
risking
apply.
what you've built
That's
without
right.
knowing.
And that's why you need a third party there.
Yeah.
But on top of that as well, I think as a third party, you can give them the insights that are potentially behind the scenes. So like, where I'm talking about potential CEOs or changes in management, like it's important when joining a brand to know what's actually happening behind the scenes. When you're an impartial third person that's providing that information, you can give a really good snapshot that's not biased. Correct. And I think that's what's incredibly important.
Correct.
And your insight into negotiations, I suppose most people won't know where they can push or what they can ask for.
Well, do you negotiate on behalf of them, V? Like, what do you do when someone comes to you? Are you negotiating the franchise fees for them? Talk us through what that process, say Rex is a Barry plan and he's potentially considering rebranding. What do you do?
Well, obviously I get to know Rex first and figure out what it is that you want to achieve. We're friends.
You don't want to know friends.
And you're right. A lot of the time when you get to know somebody, you know where they'd be a good fit.
Yeah.
When you know the different brands out there and you know what they're trying to create, you know where they're going to fit and where they're going to be happy. The people on the ground. And when you work in recruitment, it's the same thing. I might have just worked for 2 franchise groups, but over the last 4 years, I've had clients with every brand.
Oh, you
so
can tell now.
you understand what it's like within that culture. You understand what they loved and what they didn't love, and you can share that information without being biased, because whilst on paper they all offer the same thing, there are different values, and I think that there's a space for everyone and there's a space for all the brands out there. They all offer something different, they charge accordingly, and their teams are reflective of that. And I think in terms of the negotiation, 100%, I am there working on behalf of my client to help them achieve what they want to achieve. And that's not an overnight transaction. So it's not just an introduction and I walk away. I'm there for the process and until and beyond when the franchise agreement is signed, to help them. That is what I'm here to do, and it's why I've started this business. But I think the negotiation thing is often misplaced, and it's the first thing someone wants to know, what can you get me for franchise fees? And the fact is, you get what you pay for, and you need to understand the back end of franchising to understand the more franchise fees that you pay, the more money that organisation has to invest back in their people, whether it's through events or training or hiring really qualified people to improve your people. So if you want to negotiate certain things, anyone that's willing to drop their price dramatically, you either need to be a really top tier business that can add value to that organisation, or if you're negotiating, you need to be aware that you're necessarily negotiating the value that you're going to get, if that makes sense.
Perfect sense. There's franchises that charge nothing, but you don't get anything.
You get what
you can expect.
Well, it's like anything in life, right? You get what you pay for. Yeah.
And I touched on briefly before that there is a space for independent businesses out there that have outgrown the franchise groups available to them, or don't utilise what is there. So in that case, there is a space for, I had a client ask me the other day, what do you think about independency? And I think there's a space for it again. If you're not wanting to grow a team and you don't need all these extra layers, then there is a way that you can go out and just do what you love and list and sell and know that your business is just you and you don't have to answer to anyone, and it's as simple as that.
There's also cost savings. There's certain franchisees
Correct.
that
It's appealing.
are paying over $1 million in franchise fees when they could
Yeah.
invest that in their own
Correct.
internal.
And I was going to say, and then there's the other end of the scale where their business is so big that they have to do things really differently, and they just want to focus on what they've built and not use what else is out there. So I think there's a space in this industry. It is so big, and there are so many different personality types, and this is the beauty that you get to create whatever you want to create, I guess. That there's a space for everybody. It's just a matter of aligning them. And how do you know what it is without signing on the dotted line and investing yourself and your business in it?
That's right.
So I guess this is why I created this idea that hopefully I can be that person to support those businesses in that decision-making journey and add a layer of transparency and disconnect, I guess. When it's not my personal business, I can show them in black and white, these are your options, and this is what you will get and this is what you won't get, and let's figure out what's most important to you.
I love that. I think that unbiased approach, I mean, it's the only way, because you are this trusted advisor that can guide them through this process, negotiate on behalf of them, completely unbiased. Like, it's such a...
And confidential.
No, well, yeah. I think confidentiality is something that we're really looking past here, because like I said, there's so many Chinese whispers in real estate, and it's, that confidential element is so important. What was I going to touch on? The name. Why Halo?
Halo.
No.
Ah.
So Halo Selection. To be honest, it came to me, and I went back and forth, and I spoke to a few people that I really confide in and bounced ideas around, and I just kept coming back to it over and over again. It does actually have a little bit of personal meaning behind it. It's my kids' initials. That I tied together. I've shared my secret that I said I wasn't going to share.
Sorry.
But
I didn't know it was a secret.
But I just came back to it, and it felt really fitting, because I think I get to be that person to hold my client's hand and be a bit of a guardian angel along the way to ensure that they're making decisions that are right for them. So that's the corny reason behind the name.
I think that's a really beautiful reason. And I mean, in my head, I just thought Halo, like a guardian angel, sort of guiding them in the right path to the right office. So,
and for kids' initials.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. You discussed, sorry Rex, did you have a question? You were discussing earlier on, like, going into different offices, and you've seen what people do really well and what they don't do well. I know a lot of business owners are probably tuning in right now. What are the biggest mistakes you're seeing offices make?
I think... I wouldn't necessarily...
There's a lot,
Look, I wouldn't necessarily, it's the biggest mistake they make, but I think everybody knows, and this is why you can run a brilliant, successful business. Recruitment is really, really challenging. What they don't necessarily understand or really see the value in is that retention is equally as important, and the way that you retain good staff is to build a culture that you can relate to and maintain. And often in real estate, people are learning from other people and trying to mimic what they're doing, but that self-identity and understanding what you value and who you stand for as a person and being really authentic in that space is what's going to create your culture. If you spend all your time in your office being someone that you're not and trying to copy somebody else, your team is going to feel that, and you're not going to be able to retain the staff within your team or recruit and keep those top performers that you want within your business. So I think as a business owner, understanding who you are and what you want and the culture that you want within your team and being really genuine with the people that you work with creates that inner circle. Now, I guess that also taps into a little bit that not everybody is built for business leadership. And one of the things that I love doing in this business is meeting a client that comes to me and say, V, I think I want to open a business, and you get to know them and you say, hey, I don't necessarily think that this is your best option. You have all these great skills and you are a fantastic salesperson. And if you're telling me that you want to achieve all these things and go on these holidays and set up your life for your family, let's look at other ways that this might be available.
A great sales agent is not always going to be a great business owner.
And that's reflective in the businesses out there. There's a lot of salespeople that are running businesses and they're saying, why isn't this working, and why can't I recruit and why can't I retain? And it's often because they've been told to open a business and they've opened the doors and there's not really been a plan or understanding.
They need to be. It's lack of education, but I think I get calls all the time. I need salespeople. Well, what separates you from the market? Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to be out there representing your brand and headhunting talent for you, what makes you stand out? What is your differentiation in the market? We've got like they just can't tell me anything. How are you negotiating commission splits? Like, what can I offer them to get them across the line? I don't know. Like, there's never any, well, not all, but my strong clients that are continuing growth.
There's not a real reason as to what they can offer above somebody else, and there needs to be. You need to be able to attract people to your business for a reason.
Say it like that.
I think that's the education piece. They don't have the elevator pitch. They've never been taught about what's amazing about them.
I think they sign a franchise, open the door, and expect it because
that's the lack of education. Though.
It is a lack of education.
If they know what makes them special and they believe in that, then they'll resonate that out.
In fairness, though, it's no different at the franchising level. They all have their elevator pitch. They all have something to sell, but how do you differentiate one from another unless there is a specific point?
There needs to be.
That they can, I guess, achieve better than anybody else.
That's right.
And it's that understanding from a business level, as a business owner and as a franchisor, you need to be able to understand what it is that you're giving somebody that nobody else is, because everybody is supplying some sort of service.
Well, you're all in the same industry. You're all selling houses, but there needs to be a key differentiator. And, a perfect example, and I know we all know them really, really well, but Ryder & Co. You called a Ryder & Co. director and said, okay, you want me to recruit for you? What's your strategy? Like, what makes you different? What sets you apart? Talk me through your culture. What is your comm split? They'll be, all of them, no matter who's in that office, can tell it to you straight away. And you walk in there and you can feel a culture straight away. And, like every office, there's, turnover and change, but offices need to have the right strategy in place to understand what their place is in the market, how to market their business correctly, and growth plans. And that's where not everyone wants to be that big, but that's where someone like you needs to, that can come in and understand where someone wants to be in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and then cater them to the right franchise group that's on offer. V, are you a no fee, no win?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So people can call you up.
But your fee is different.
So for my clients, so I have actually, there's a two-part policy here that I can go into. So when a client comes to me and says, I want to work with you, I want you to explore my options, I get to know that person just on a let's get to know each other basis and figure out if we're going to be able to work together, because they might not like working with me, in which case there's a likelihood I'm not going to be able to help them in the best possible way. So that first initiation process is just
get to know. If they then want me to source the options, then there's a small fee involved to ensure that I can work for them exclusively, and I can go out and I can do the research and I represent them. So that's a relatively small fee and a contract for me for them to know that I'm working in their best interests only. From that point, I then go and source the different options. I might speak to different groups and see what options are available, give them a brief, anonymous tip on what that marketplace might look like and what my client might stand for. And then based on teeing up or aligning the stars, I can then make some introductions and do our first meetings and see how all parties interact and gel. From that point, there's no further fees involved for my client.
but there is an agreement in place with the different franchise groups, like a mortgage broker, that you get a little bit of a trail as that business goes on. So that only happens from a franchise group point of view once the agreement is signed and the deal is done. If my clients shop around to 10 different franchise groups and they're not happy with any of them, there's no need to sign any of them. It's an exploration and it's looking for an opportunity that might be available if it doesn't work.
So it's a no-brainer for a franchise group to connect with you.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Or a franchise office or a person looking to
that's it.
open an
There's
office.
no guarantee that anyone I bring to the table, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And it's that interaction, the exploring the opportunity that wouldn't have been there prior, I guess. So
Makes sense.
to me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. It's
Thank
been
you.
an absolute pleasure having you on the show. And honestly, your business is something that hasn't been done and it's going to a game changer for most, I think.
Thank you.
I'm really excited, V, to see where the future of Halo Selection goes. I think it's an incredible service that you're offering, and sky's the limit. So thank you so much for being
Thanks
a
for
part
having
of
me,
Real
guys.
Estate Renovators, and we'll see you on the next episode.